Cyprus has officially assumed the bloc's rotating presidency, which it will hold for the upcoming 6 months.
U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order suspending Washington's participation in UN agencies focused on climate and migration.
1 million people were left without water and electricity after Russia launched nearly 100 drones into Ukraine.
French farmers forced their way into Paris to protest to the EU's proposed trade deal with Mercosur and to pressure French government.
Cyprus has officially assumed the bloc's rotating presidency, which it will hold for the upcoming 6 months. The opening ceremony unfolded in Nicosia, Europe's only divided capital due to Turkish military occupation of the city's north. The President of the Republic of Cyprus, Nikos Christodoulides, spoke of the great responsibility the presidency carries.
Αυτός είναι και ο στόχος και η επιδίωξή μας ως Κυπριακή Προεδρία. Περισσότερη ευρωπαϊκή ολοκλήρωση, περισσότερη Ευρώπη μέσα από μια αυτόνομη ένωση ανοιχτή στον κόσμο.
Heads of European institutions Antonio Costa and Ursula von der Leyen pointed out that the timing of Cyprus's presidency comes at a challenging time due to today's geopolitical environment. However, they both expressed their confidence in the country.
I have no doubt, dear Nikos, that under your leadership, we will continue to make Europe more secure, more prosperous, more engaged, and more united.
Our ability to combine tradition with innovation and to draw strength from our history as we shape the future. It is a fitting place to begin this new presidency.
Also present at the opening ceremony was Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is looking forward to European support in reaching a peace agreement with Russia.
Ukraine also deserves this to be an equal part of our common European home, and we hope that your presidency will be productive in moving us forward on this path.
The EU presidency of the Republic of Cyprus will last until the end of June and covers 3 summit meetings.
French President Emmanuel Macron has accused the U.S. of breaking free from international rules and gradually turning away from some of its allies amid a geopolitical world changing for the worse. In his annual address to French ambassadors, Macron explained,
Nous sommes dans un monde qui se dérègle. Les instances du multilatéralisme fonctionnent de moins en moins bien. Nous évoluons dans un monde de grande puissance avec une vraie tentation de se partager le monde. Les États-Unis sont une puissance établie mais qui se détourne progressivement de certains de ses alliés et s'affranchit de règles internationales qu'elle promouvait encore récemment, qu'il s'agisse du commerce, de certains éléments de sécurité ou de certaines enceintes.
Macron's comments come after a string of strongly worded statements by the Trump administration which have alarmed many of Washington's staunchest allies. Chief among them is U.S. President Donald Trump's escalating rhetoric regarding the annexation of Greenland, the world's largest island and part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Trump has long floated the idea of purchasing the island, which lies mostly in the Arctic Circle, citing its strategic location and saying it was vital for U.S. national security. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order suspending Washington's participation in dozens of UN agencies, commissions and advisory panels focused on climate, labor, migration and other issues his administration describes as promoting so-called work initiatives. This means the U.S. will withdraw from 66 international organizations, including the UN Climate Treaty Framework, marking the most extensive retreat from global cooperation in U.S. modern history. According to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the institutions were redundant in their scope, mismanaged, wasteful, and poorly run. Rubio also described the agency's interest as a threat to U.S. sovereignty. The withdrawal leaves the U.S. as the only country outside the global climate framework. It also comes as Trump rattles allies and adversaries with military actions. Trump, who calls climate change a hoax, withdrew from the Paris Agreement shortly after returning to the White House.
The White House has announced that Venezuela's interim government decisions will be dictated by the United States and that it plans to control all sales of the country's petroleum following the capture of Nicolás Maduro. It comes after U.S. forces seized 2 Venezuela-linked oil tankers on Wednesday in the North Atlantic and the Caribbean. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said controlling Venezuela's oil would allow Washington to pressure the country.
The way that we control Venezuela is we control the purse strings, we control the energy resources, and we tell the regime, you're allowed to sell the oil so long as you serve America's national interest. You're not allowed to sell it if you can't serve America's national interest. And that's how we exert incredible pressure on that country without wasting a single American life, without endangering a single American citizen.
Venezuelan interim president Delcy Rodriguez, who was officially sworn in this week, said Venezuela would pursue economic relationships across multiple continents, characterizing U.S. engagement as standard diplomatic practice.
El 71% de las exportaciones venezolanas está concentrado en 8 países. Y de ese 71%, el 27%, el destino es los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica. Las relaciones económicas de Venezuela están diversificadas en distintos mercados en el mundo, como están diversificadas nuestras relaciones geopolíticas. Y así debe ser, es lo correcto, diversificar relaciones.
The U.S. Energy Department said Washington would oversee all Venezuelan oil shipments worldwide, permitting exports only through approved channels. Sales of 30 million to 50 million barrels will begin immediately, with proceeds held in U.S.-controlled accounts at international banks.
An ICE immigration officer fatally shot a woman in Minneapolis in the United States during a raid on a residential street. In a video circulating online, the woman appears to pull out onto the road before she is stopped by officers who request her to open her door and step out of the car. When the woman proceeds to drive forward in what seems to be an attempt to flee the scene, another officer standing in front of the car draws his gun and shoots at the moving vehicle. The woman's car then sped into 2 parked cars a few meters further, crashing to a stop. In footage provided by eyewitnesses, a total of 3 gunshots can be heard. Images from the scene show 1 gunshot entered through the front windshield. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem called the incident an act of, quote, domestic terrorism, and claimed the woman had tried to run over the officer. U.S. President Donald Trump mirrored this stance and defended ICE. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey reacted with anger, disputing claims that the woman had been a threat to the officer. Frey also accused ICE of sowing chaos and demanded that the agency leave the city.
You shot someone!
They want us to respond in a way that creates a military occupation in our city. They want an excuse to come in and show the kind of force that will create more chaos and more despair.
Hundreds gathered in Minneapolis in the evening of Wednesday to hold a vigil for the woman, as well as to protest ICE raids and Trump's escalating crackdown on immigration.
Russia launched nearly 100 drones into Ukraine overnight into Thursday, targeting energy infrastructure in the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions and triggering water and power outages. Electricity in Zaporizhzhia gradually began returning by Thursday morning, but the situation in Dnipropetrovsk remained critical in the afternoon. Around 1 million people in the region still lacked water and heating, according to officials. Critical services have been disrupted, with city hospitals across Dnipro partially operating on generator power. Public transportation, including the metro, was also disrupted, and school holidays in the region have been extended by a few days. Temperatures in Ukraine are expected to drop below -10 degrees Celsius in the coming days, making power and heating outages even more difficult and dangerous for the population.
French farmers forced their way into Paris to protest the EU's proposed trade deal with 5 South American countries. About 100 tractors bypassed police barriers on Thursday to reach landmarks like the Eiffel Tower or the Arc de Triomphe. The French Interior Ministry said about 20 tractors reached the French capital city centre. The protest was organized by the Rural Coordination Union to pressure France's government, which opposes the trade deal with Latin American countries of Mercosur.
Le problème, c'est qu'on va importer de la viande ou des céréales qui sont produites avec des substances ou des matières actives qui ne sont plus autorisées en France depuis plus de 25 ans, quoi. Du bœuf aux hormones, du poulet au chlore, enfin voilà, en France on ne produit pas ça, donc pourquoi on importe des produits dont les normes ne correspondent pas aux normes françaises, ni même européennes.
The European Commission has stepped up its effort this week to convince member states such as France and Italy to conclude the trade agreement. It promised farmers to access 45 billion euros from the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy, as soon as 2028. The Commission has also decided to suspend the EU carbon border tax on fertilizers. The French government says the deal will threaten beef, chicken, sugar, ethanol and honey production. French farmers are also angry about the government's sanitary measures to control lumpy skin disease in cattle.